Welcome back to Creating Your Life. This is episode 19, Advanced Imagination. Marc-Andre Alexander here for another episode of Creating Your Life, and today we're going to talk about advanced imagination. This is going to be a little bit more controversial, but it's the kind of thing that's worth checking out yourself and giving it a try to see how well it works for you. Up to this point, we've been talking about creating from the mind and using the mind to create. But there's another way of creating, and I call it creating from soul. Joseph Joubert said, imagination is the eye of the soul. And I think it's worth considering that you have a mind, but you aren't your mind. Despite what Descartes said, I think, therefore I am, you still exist even when you're not thinking. There's a part of you, a detached part that can even observe your thoughts, observe your feelings, observe your body. But in a real way, you're not your body, you're not your mind, you're not your emotions. There's this other faculty, which I think is the seat of the soul, where imagination really resides, this creative aspect. And creating from soul is a little bit different. Let me give you an example. As I mentioned before, there was a time in my life where I was wanting to create the perfect girlfriend, and I detailed specifically all the criteria for this girlfriend, and I used my imagination to, in a sense, create from the mind that this person would come into my life. And sure enough, she did, and it took me 2 years to get out of it. Why? Because creating from the mind, going for this level of specifics, I was able to account for those things, but she came with things I hadn't accounted for. In other words, in my attempt to create what I thought was the perfect girlfriend, I didn't manage to cover all aspects. And in some respects, when you're creating from the mind, you can't do that. There's another way of approaching this, however. Rather than going for the details and being very specific, the other way to create is to aim for a state of consciousness. Let me give you an example of what I mean by that. My wife and I, understanding this distinction when we started looking for a home, decided that all creativity, you have to use the mind somewhat, but what we were going to aim for, since we really knew we couldn't specify everything we wanted our home to have, we would actually go for a state of consciousness. So what we put out there was very simple. We wanted to be able to say, we love our home without reservation. We love our home without reservation. By aiming for that state of consciousness, then we allowed life to put it together for us. We had some specifics. Obviously, you have to be very clear about what you're willing to afford financially. So we had a very specific amount of money we were willing to spend to achieve that state of consciousness with our home. It was also a challenge because in Silicon Valley at that time, now about 18 years ago, homes were being bid up, $150,000 beyond the asking price. So anytime you're looking at a home, there are a lot of people trying to get that home. So we went out looking. We wanted a place with some space and light. It'd be nice to have gardening areas and other things that would be enhanced. And everywhere we looked, each of the homes that a real estate agent took us to, it was often like the house was really nice, but the property wasn't that good, or the property was really nice and the home wasn't that good, or the home and property were great except there was this one room that was just wrong, or there was something that really couldn't be changed. The other thing we wanted is we didn't want to fixer-upper, so we didn't want to buy a home that wasn't already there where we wanted it. We didn't like the idea of having to spend a lot of money and time trying to remake the home into it. We wanted a turnkey solution. And even though it took a while, we didn't compromise. And this is the other thing. Sometimes when you set visions like this, when you aim for these goals, something will come along that almost meets it and you feel like you have to compromise. We didn't want to, so we kept looking. Finally, after a few months, our real estate agent said, hey, I think I have a place that's just right for you. So he took us to a home, the current home we're living in. From the front, it didn't look like much, garage, and there was this fence, and it was on a busy street. But we walked in, and in the front, there was a pond with a waterfall, double wide doors. We walked in, and the home itself had this atrium, an open air atrium in the middle of the home. And on four sides, it was all glass. So it acted as a skylight. You could look up into the sky. And in the atrium, not only were there plants, but there was a hot tub and a waterfall. And this is not something we ever could have imagined. And that's the thing about creating from soul. It can provide you something that you did not imagine, that the mind could not conceive of, because you don't necessarily know all the components that would make it achieve the state of consciousness you were aiming for. The home was empty. It had been on the market for several months because a company had moved this family to another state and had bought the home to get rid of it for them. And for some reason, nobody was interested. The previous week, even, they had an open house and nobody came. Perhaps it wasn't really a family type of home. Had a big backyard, plenty of space for gardens, and it was clean, and it was only 3 years old. It was perfect. The money they wanted was more than we were willing to pay. So we offered less than we were willing to pay. They came back just above what we were willing to pay, and then we gave them exactly what we were willing to pay, and they went for it. So we got the home. It's been 17 years. We love our home without reservation. We paid exactly the amount we were looking for, all because we were aiming for a state of consciousness rather than trying to detail every specific thing and then being unhappy about the things that we couldn't detail. Here's another way of looking at it. Henry David Thoreau said, the world is but a canvas to the imagination. And throughout, we've been talking about pictures. Think about this. The subconscious mind, the subconscious repository stores pictures. And we're talking about in the present, you can be carrying these pictures. And when you set a goal, it's like a future picture and you're making it present. And if there's a conflict, you regulate towards that picture. But we've also been talking about the past in the sense that you're carrying burdens from the past. And if you think about it for a minute, what is the present? Pictures. What is the future? Pictures. What is the past? Pictures. Here's the thing. You can change the present, you can change the future, and you can change the past. It's all pictures. It doesn't matter if you're talking past, present, or future. It's all one thing here, right now. This is the view from soul, this kind of detached view that exists out of time where you're looking down and you're saying, okay, these are the past images that are affecting me. They're actually present now. And here are future images that are affecting me that maybe I have to change if I have a fear. Maybe I set goals and I assume those pictures are now to replace the current pictures. So you're selecting pictures and changing them so that your present set of pictures are the pictures you want. And this means you can change the past. Just like my friend Ted, who had his brother telling him this song over and over again. Wrong, Ted, wrong again, wrong all the time, every day, every week, wrong, wrong, wrong. That was a picture from the past he was carrying. He went in and he changed the past and switched out the picture with a new song. Right, Ed, right again, right all the time, every day, every week, right, right, right. Creating from soul does not look at past, present, and future. It sees it as all one, and you can change it in the moment using the power of imagination, having self-efficacy, the sense that you make your life happen, and applying the discipline daily, the affirmation process, so that repeatedly you're telling your subconscious, no, this is the picture I want rather than that one. And going through the process of ejecting that picture, letting the new one come in, and hanging in there during the transition, which can be a little dicey because for a while there you may not have a picture and it can feel uncomfortable, especially if that picture comes up and it seems like the thing you're trying to change is getting worse as it's coming up, making way for the new one to come in. That's all for now. For the next episode, we're going to talk about motivation and the power of authorities. In the meantime, you can pick up my book, Creating Your Life, at Amazon.com, both on Kindle and in paperback.